Hi, this is Phoenix, and I'm sure you've heard by now of Black Panther, the Marvel film, which pretty much shattered expectations and is doing really well at the box office and has been viewed by many people. And I think all of that is great and important, especially considering what Black Panther is about. I was hoping to delve a little bit philosophically into some of the ideas, very briefly, talk about some of the ideas as they pertain to my own kind of perspective on it. So I think immediately one of the things that we can easily notice is going on is the friction between historical figures that we've had as exemplified and illustrated and represented by the two characters in Black Panther, which would have been Killmonger and Black Panther himself, and the comparison would be, of course, to Martin Luther King as well as Malcolm X. Now, this is an interesting thing to consider the tension. For those of you who haven't seen the movie, I feel this is a minor spoiler, but the basic idea is there's a lot of tension between Killmonger's goal, which is to take the weapons and powerful vibranium from Wakanda, the imaginary kind of El Dorado city in Africa, and he wants to give it to the poor and to those who have been oppressed, Africans as well as African Americans, and he wants to give them the tools so they can fight, which is indeed analogous to violence itself. While Black Panther himself is doing his best to play the superhero, the one with his conscience in the right place, so to speak, by stopping this effort. But very quickly, upon viewing the film, we realized that this is obviously a lot more complicated than we thought, more complicated than just a simple dichotomy or polarization. Because basically what is happening is you realize, especially towards the end and at the end, when Black Panther decides to share some of the technology with the world, and to those who are suffering, African Americans, for instance, and he wants to do that. And you realize that Killmonger's point to try to share the wonderful things about Wakanda was actually a good goal, and something that would have been good for anyone to accomplish. And that's kind of the difficulty with watching the film is you want to root for Killmonger, even though he is a villain, or at least a kind of an archetypal villain, so to speak. But also very nuanced nonetheless. He isn't your cardboard box character because he has a lot of motivations and frustrations and desires. And the very thinly disguised rage was wonderful to see, the way that he was determined to take the power back. And he was not afraid of violence. Now, of course, this fits into the historical precedent of the Black Panther movement, as well as Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream. And it's like, what do we do with all of that? Like, it's certainly very difficult to think about how we analyze this realization that people really are just trying to do their best and bring liberation. I think about the recent kind of debate that Ta-Nehisi Coates has had with Cornel West, and how complicated that has been, because it's very interesting to think about how people look at the world in very, very different ways. But they aren't necessarily coming from a wrong place. They aren't coming from a place that is so easily black and white. And I think that's one of the best things that comes out of Black Panther is that realization that we can't just have a simple dichotomy, a simple black and white drama, and that is what makes a lot of the Marvel films, such as Black Panther for sure, very unique, is this realization that the situation for the superhero isn't black and white at all. They will have to do things that they don't necessarily want to do for the greater good. There's a lot more I could go into it. I'm personally inspired by this film because it's inspired me to look at certain literary references and historical references in African American literature and African culture more seriously, even though I've always considered it to be very important and I've done my best to engage with the text. But I'm definitely learning about a lot more and some of the underpinnings behind the movie Black Panther. So I'm definitely going to be looking into these texts, hopefully getting to read August Wilson, which inspired for sure Chadwick Boseman, which I think is really cool. The main actor and was Black Panther in the film. And I think that's important And I also recently bought a book by Frantz Fanon called The Wretched of the Earth, I think, and I really want to read that and engage with it and take it seriously. I think a lot of these writers are overlooked by the idea of the white Canaan, which is something that I'm always trying to expand outside of. But anyway, go see Black Panther if you appreciate superhero films, and even if you just find some of these ideas that I'm discussing to be interesting and worth considering. Superhero movies are not for everybody, but I really think that there is a larger and broader message here that I think has been missed in a lot of the previous Marvel movies. They haven't necessarily focused on the distinctions of culture the way that Black Panther has. So yeah, this is Phoenix, and I hope you enjoyed this talk. Thank you for your time.